Kane held 2 pieces of Marco Polo's map to El Dorado. He took one from Egg Shen and Mushu.
Huh?
Egg Shen and Mushu.
Here we are, 2 months after my make or break video. I mentioned in this video I was planning on making a sequel for when the update does drop, and I mentioned 3 things to determine whether this would be a good update or not. So let's discuss probably the biggest update Pirate101 has gotten in almost a decade. Number 1, the level cap increase. Thank God we got a level cap increase. This was so needed for Pirate. Playing through new updates and seeing no progression in your Pirate felt so demoralizing. This was a no-brainer, and I'm glad they pushed the new levels. Although it's only 75, it's still very welcoming. Hey, we even got 3 new learnables from our trainers. Number 2, Pirate101 exclusive models. This one also happened. Honestly, the new free-to-play companion we receive, Ardito Porcellini, is really strong and really cool. The design to make him different classes is so unique and serves as a taste of how future companions can be created. Although he looks eerily similar to Gaspard de Volay, it's not that huge of an issue. On top of that, we got to see Queen variations of the Armada too. Number 3, story improvements. I'm gonna hold off on talking about this too much for now, but I will say I don't like the path KI went. Alright, now let's talk about the update as a whole. There are 3 main parts to the update I wanted to address, and my overall opinions. These main parts also reflect the developers whose focus it is. Art. I believe Mia was the main one in charge for this update, but maybe the others like Joanne and Okadenshi also contributed. Whoever played a part in the artwork did a fantastic job. The powers look straight from pre-VA2. These witch powers in particular are so cool, and I really hope they don't get nerfed because it harbors different playstyles, and I am all for that. For the people saying, "It's broken, nerf it now!" Guys, this isn't League of Legends, Overwatch, or Street Fighter. This is Pirate101, an MMORPG. The game isn't designed to be played competitively. Having strong powers serves as a good thing. If it's broken in something like PvP, just slap a no PvP label on it and call it a day. Anything that allows witch doctors to function without scratch is a huge win. I'm also assuming they were in charge of reskinning pre-existing areas for the story, which, by the way, is not a problem at all, and they looked completely unnoticeable. For example, the rooms used in East Wing and West Wing were reskinned from Palazzo Atria, and it's one of those things where unless you were really looking out for it, or if I hadn't just mentioned it, most players wouldn't know, or better yet cared. It looks natural, so that's all that really matters. Kane's Crypt being pretty much a port from Bruno Chapel in VA1 is a slight disappointment, but outside of that, everything art-wise was superb. Overall, A+, I can't complain, and I can't find anyone in other Discords saying anything critical or negative towards the art. Gameplay. This is mainly Dom's jurisdiction. I mentioned in a previous video that although I love Dom as a designer, my one criticism is that he has a tendency to make difficult fights for mainline content. I don't have any issues with hard fights if they are side content, but for little Jimmy in the 3rd grade to go through enemies one-shotting all his companions because he wants his level 75 powers is a little ridiculous. This update did a great job at making fights not easy, but also not ludicrously challenging. The mobs and bosses still have abilities with guaranteed damage, but it's no longer dealing over 1000 damage, instead about 500 to 700. It's a solid medium level difficulty. Also, there are differing takes on the whole leveling solution. The solution proposed by Dom was to make farmable side bosses and make a badge where after a certain amount of fights, you were rewarded XP. I understand both sides, but overall, I am a fan of it. It keeps players farming the content while also indirectly helping later players farm the XP. It will boost overall playability in Pirate, and I'm all for that. Power creep is an issue I want to discuss more thoroughly in a future video, but I will say that, unlike Wiz, I don't think Pirate has fallen victim to power creep yet. I worry that with these pack companions being as they are, as well as the gear from the previous updates, that Pirate might go down the dark path. The powers, I will say, are super exciting. I was expecting just 1 power for each class, but we got 3. On top of the art, having new powers really encapsulates the progression of the Pirate the previous updates were missing. Overall, B+, only because I worry power creep might get out of hand in the future, with Ardito's versatility and the pack companion's inherent strength. Story. Oh boy. See, I'm trying to be as positive as I can while writing the script for this video because I know KI won't take what I say to digest if I spend the next 5 to 10 minutes angrily voicing my frustrations. With this topic, there are 2 parts done by primarily 2 different developers. I don't know for sure whether or not others were helping them, but this is their jurisdiction. The first is the story itself. Blind Mew is the narrative director for Pirate101. He is the one who wrote the story for Pirate we all know and love. He is also the one in charge of the dialogue, including that snippet at the beginning of this video mentioning that instead of Egg Foo Young's map piece, he mistakenly put Egg Shen. I'll first mention what I did like from this update, and then what I didn't. I'd loved seeing Catbeard have voice lines again. Personally, he and Monkey King are my 2 favorite companions, and with Monkey King confirmed to have a promotion, it's pretty safe to say he will get lines too in the future. I think Catbeard had a little too much screen time and wished it was evenly distributed amongst the other mainline companions, like El Toro had much less lines this time around, and Old Scratch had none. Maybe there were complications with voices that were out of Blind Mew's control, so it's not that big of an issue. I also liked having Albino back. I don't like Sinbad as a character, he's annoying and overall useless to the crew, but Albino is a lot more likable. I think for future updates, a good idea would be to siphon screen time from Sinbad over to Albino. Finally, whoever the VA was for Queen did a cinematic job. I think the voice lines for Queen were probably my favorite part of the entire update.
How dare you! I thought you'd come for the map, but no! You were looking for a different prize! Butchering my beloved lord like an animal! Animals! That's what you are! Vile, disgusting, sweat-stained bags of tripe! Fetid, stinking heaps of flesh!
I really missed the Armada being the main antagonist, and this was a reminder of how great the story can be if the Armada are our biggest threat, not Oksana. Alright, now let's talk about the negatives. There are a few to mention here, and some I don't think are entirely Sam's fault. These issues can be deflected as being a corporate problem, and Sam being the scapegoat. Number 1, the map pieces. This is my biggest gripe of the whole update. I don't have an issue with going back to Valencia to retrieve the map pieces from the Armada, because it is our main goal in the game. I wish they approached it a different way. I wrote 3 mock stories a week prior to this update. One was we get the 2 map pieces Kane and the Armada possessed. Another one was we get 1 piece and Oksana gets the other. And the 3rd mock story was after we finished Trianon to collect the map pieces, we learned we are too late and Oksana already snatched them. However, we got a different ending to this episode. Not only did we get the 2 map pieces the Armada possessed, but a 3rd map piece that was never mentioned. You see, the 2 map pieces were from Erica the Red, which is the last pirate on Marco Pollo's crew we haven't encountered yet, who most likely resides in Grizzleheim, and the others are Mother Jenny's piece, which was most likely residing in Darkmoor, where she was buried. After some feedback from the community on the Pirate Discord, Blind Mew explained his reasoning as to why Kane got a 3rd piece, which in turn led us to now have it. He claims that if he doesn't speed up the pace this time for Arc 2, then we can never get to El Dorado at all. The problem with this is there is no catharsis at the end of the road. The journey to El Dorado will feel like another rushed storyline. I'd personally rather have us never reach El Dorado than to get there faster than anticipated. I'll explain in a little a theory I believe for the reason Blind Mew went this route, and I think, as I alluded to earlier, it possibly being a corporate problem and Sam being the scapegoat. I could be 100% wrong on this claim as well, as there is no factual evidence to support this. It's all speculation. Quality over quantity, I know, I get it. But for an update to take double the time Zigzag had, only to contain 8 total quests, is a disappointment. For context, Zigzag took 5 months to make, and although the area is riddled with problems outside of the story, it has 12 quests. VA3, if you are starting from level 70, only offers 2 levels worth of experience. You could argue that it's intentional because Sinbad through Zigzag also now grant XP to total up to 75, sure, but you can also argue that VA3 could have had more quests that just offered less XP to total it to 75. Florenza is one of, if not the largest hub between both Wiz and Pirate, so a route that could have been taken would be to make 5 or more so quests in Florenza first, and then go to Trianon Palace. For example, instead of us going to Mezzaluna Tavern and then going to Florenza Dock to recruit Ardito, he could have been held prisoner by the Tortellini crabs or something, and we needed to bust him out. We could go into the sewers and do a dungeon to retrieve him. Then he promises to help us for freeing him. It would give VA3 that filler content seen in other worlds. I was also disappointed that we weren't able to visit other unused assets like Valencia City or Cadiz. Maybe in the future we can in Valencia Part 4, so I'll hold my thoughts on that for now. That's it on the story itself. Now, the second part of the story is the actual world building. This includes the creation and pieces together the areas, quests, NPCs, dialogue, mobs, bosses, pretty much everything in the update getting roped together for the player to experience. The main person in charge of this goes by Sinbad or Andrew. I want to make this understood. I have nothing against Andrew on a personal level. I don't know anything about his personal life. All I know is that he is the world builder for the game I spent 13 years playing. Unfortunately, he is the member of the KI team I like the least. I get that he's newer and hasn't been a part of Pirate101 as much as I or most of the community has. That's fine. However, it's been 4 episodes now, and the problems that have plagued and made every update post Sinbad Part 2 unenjoyable in the eyes of many is primarily because of this guy. I don't like to hurt feelings, but the job being done isn't even adequate. Andrewism is the perfect thing I've heard to represent these minuscule bugs that add up to create a disappointing update. From messing up collisions, to not including already made animations, to not fixing the camera angles, which, mind you, is something Andrew himself mentioned in the KI Live, I can go on and on. A majority of the issues presented are literally a passion problem. Sure, Dom creates some overpowered monstrosities, but it's still fun and unique while showing his love and respect for the game. If he did, he would know you aren't supposed to make small corridor fights that you can't pass through. He would know you aren't supposed to make mobs walk through areas where you need to stop to progress into the quest line. For example, Tartarus, Zigzag, and now Trianon Palace are all unportable areas. My initial guess that I was rolling with is that because Andrew ported areas from Wizard that were also dungeons, he didn't realize that you can't port to dungeons if you weren't part of the initial party. The weird part about this is the inconsistency of it. In Tartarus, you can't port to anyone except for Electo's chamber. In this update, you can't port into Trianon's exterior, but you can for the interior. I really don't understand how sometimes the porting works and then sometimes it doesn't. The inconsistency adds fuel to the fire. And I would expect that after 10 months from the abomination that is Zigzag, which he is also heavily responsible for, need I remind you of the corridor fights that are so difficult to bypass, that these problems would be fixed, but no. We still have infinite area bugs, the porting doesn't work, and undockable areas, which frustrates me the most because the island is literally visible in the Skyway. There's even a dedicated area in Trianon for docking purposes. All of these excuses of being unable to dock because Andrew can't figure out how to properly make docking work gets really tiring. Pirate's really lucky that the first 65 levels of the game are top-notch, because if you've invested this much time into the game, you can maybe look over the inadequate new areas primarily concocted by Andrew. It really sucks because I think everyone else in the Pirate team does at least an adequate job except for arguably the most important person. And again, I want to make this very, very clear. I have nothing against these devs personally, nor do I advocate for tailored harassment towards them. Please, as the viewer, do not channel any frustration from these updates towards them. They are people like you at the end of the day. I speak on this strictly from a business perspective. They are the producers, and I, as well as the rest of the player base, are the consumers. We pay money for this product. If the product does not satisfy the money being spent, then I have no shame or pity for criticizing it. Overall, D+, because I don't like getting the 3 map pieces, and Andrewisms really detract from this update. My final grade on this update will be C or a 5.5 out of 10. It's definitely better than Sinbad through Zigzag, but not by a wide margin. I do think more updates are on its way, and I have faith the Pirate team will make better updates in the future. So now let's talk about what should be kept intact and what should be tweaked. I want to remind you that these are my personal opinions, and I don't demand anything I say to be implemented just because I said so. For art, I really have nothing to say. Reskins worked well, powers were well made, keep it going. Gameplay. The difficulty was a good medium overall. I think the non-existence of epic battles was a slight letdown, but it's something they can add before the update goes live. Powers were really cool, especially Witch Doctors. I think these powers, although perceived as extremely strong, can rebalance the game and make sense to properly nerf Old Scratch. Yes, I know some people love Old Scratch, but the playstyle of Mojo flows into AoE, at least to me, is mind-numbingly cringe. Runic allows melee witch doctors to thrive. Easier access to Mojo Rising 3 and above can kind of fix the accuracy issue with witch doctors because, for those who don't know, Bladestorm, Double Tap, and Mojo Rising at rank 3 and above calculates critical strikes not off of accuracy and dodge, but by your highest stat. Since Witch uses Will, and most mobs and bosses tend to have lower base Will, the crits will still go through even if Witch has a low base accuracy. I think you can either make the Witch companions have higher base accuracy, or make Witch powers themselves have higher base damage, but less scaling with spell power. For the story, my theory on why we got a third piece is that the third map piece is Erica the Reds. From what I've seen on the Atmoplex, there is no NPC model for Erica. Because of resource deprivation, my guess is that they needed a way to steer the ship, no pun intended, away from Grizzleheim and Erica because the chances of getting Grizzleheim as a world and a new NPC model is too much for Pirate to have. It's also soft confirmed that the next Wizard 101 world is Darkmoor. This is also why I think the next world we go to will be Darkmoor, because financially it's the most efficient since they can port over Darkmoor areas from Wiz over, as well as mobs, bosses, and other art. It's still annoying that with this projection we will be going to El Dorado sooner than we should. I guess only time will tell. I also don't really know how the story involves Oksana. I personally don't like Oksana as a character. Her backstory is lame. She wants to go to El Dorado simply for power to dethrone death. Overall, it's cheap and uninteresting. A proposed solution I have to Oksana would be to make her the end boss for the next world. Assuming it's Darkmoor, it kinda makes sense that the undead world would have the end boss be a necromancer. Let's defeat her and continue on with our mission to El Dorado. For world building, again, sorry to muster up more toxicity towards Andrew, but he is the one responsible as to why so many updates feel lackluster. Personally, I couldn't keep up with the Zigazag story because of the overflow of bugs and softlocks on my first playthrough. I've talked about these problems in this video shown, and that I wish they would have made the Sinbad through Zigazag content just side worlds, so players aren't forced to experience the vast amount of Andrewisms, especially in Tartarus and Zigazag. I'm almost positive by the time VA3 gets onto the live realm, all the problems present in Tart and Zigazag are still going to be there, so new players still have to go through these buggy episodes. Some final thoughts. All of the information I have provided and critiqued upon is from test realm, so some of these issues might be fixed by the time the live realm comes out. For anything that has changed from now until live, I will post it in the comments section. As of July 11th, there isn't a full-on fix to these softlocks, but I have found a solution that works decently well. Not perfect, but manageable. The solution I have found to be the most effective is to go to an empty realm, in test realm go to Gandry, and in live realm go to realms like Raven Eyes, Old Scratch, or Egg Shen, I mean Egg Fu Young. That way, when you get smuggled to Trianon, you can get your own created version to progress in. The frustrating thing about this is that because Trianon is treated as an instance, you can't port over to a friend, or in my case, your second account, so you have to then mark your location in Trianon, go back to Avery's Court, hop to whatever realm you want, then port back to your marker to be with whoever you are questing with. You see how annoying these hoops you have to jump through are? I'm also assuming the next episode or world will come out around the same time in the summer. I have no issue waiting for updates if they need extra time to polish the rough edges. It's better to wait for a good update than to get an update faster but have softlocks and other Andrewisms. I also understand and want the rest of the community to understand that some of these decisions are likely decided at the corporate level and out of KI's control. One example are the update deadlines. Maybe we only get 8 quests because the Pirate team was rushing to put out something by summer. I get that the Pirate team is partially held back by corporate red tape, so changes I or the rest of the community pleads for, especially ones involving in-game purchases, are out of KI's control. Another big example are the Valencia companions. I would have loved to have these companions be given to us for completing VA3, but it became locked behind a pack. I don't blame KI for this since I don't think it was their call. The part I do criticize is that these companions either have no voice lines or, in the Swashbuckler companion's case, copied from a pre-existing companion, Contessa Ariento.
How can I help? See? How can I help? You called? How can I help? You called?
In the fall update, the expectations are the first shipment of companion reworks as well as maybe a promotion quest for El Toro. I think in winter, if they aren't planning another continuation to the story, please don't add another episode in winter. Perhaps a new gauntlet, perhaps another side event like Slade's Summer Showdown. These are the things that I want to see KI do while we wait for the new story progression to keep players active. Only time will tell what actually happens. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, and I'll see you all later.